Hi, this is Tim Yoder with Fit Small Business. Today I'll be evaluating Express Accounts by NCH Software for the Fit Small Business case study, Chapter 2, which deals with accounts payable. So I've opened my Express Accounts software and I am on the purchases screen. So when you first open it, you'll be on the home screen. And then since we're dealing with accounts payable today, I flipped over to our purchases center. And here we see a little workflow for all of our accounts payable. So we have a button to click if we're going to immediately pay for a purchase. So we're not going to go through the accounts payable system. We're just going to record it immediately. That would be some, perhaps you go to a store and you write a check or pay cash, you're going to record it immediately. Or we can enter a purchase order and go through the whole system. Or we can enter an accounts payable and go through the whole system. So I actually really like this little workflow setup. So the first task is to create a utility bill from New York City Electric Company for $150. So let's do that. Let's first set up our vendor. So I clicked the suppliers, gives us a list of vendors. Very nice. They call them suppliers, I'd call them vendors. Click the add button, and we're going to call this New York City Electric Company. Okay, looks like we could enter all of the contact information. Very nice. We can enter a default payment term. We'll just leave that at net 30. That looks good. So obviously you'd want to take some information and fill this all out. We don't really need to do that for the purposes of the case study. So there, that was extremely easy to set up a supplier. Let's go ahead and close that window. Now let's enter the account payable. So we're going to enter an account payable. We'll just go ahead and use today's date, so it's automatically doing the net 30. This bill is from the New York City Electric Company. This would all populate if we had entered an address when we set up the vendor, which we did not. So it's going to go to accounts payable. Their current balance is 0. So here's the amount. So this reference number will be whatever their invoice number is. I'll make up a number. And here for the memo, let's just say electric bill. So down here, let's see if we can, so we have a utility expense set up already. Okay, that's interesting. I wonder, do we have to pull it up by number? Okay, we'll investigate this a little more as we enter some more bills. So we already have a utility expense. I think it's the only expense account we have set up right now. That's why it popped up immediately. And so we are recording a bill of $150. Interesting. So now it's saying we're out of balance. So what if yeah, there we go. So I clicked, all I did was click up here in the amount and it filled in the $150. So we're out of balance because we didn't put that amount in. So it's going to credit accounts payable and is going to debit our utility expense. So this was actually fairly interesting. You could actually credit and debit various accounts down here. So if you have any unusual situation, you could take care of it through basically kind of a journal entry down here. Okay, so let's record that bill. And there we go. Okay, it looks like it just brings us up to the same screen again. We've already recorded it, so I'm just going to say cancels. Now if we look in our accounts payable, we can see that we have that bill and it has not been paid. Very good. That was extremely easy. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is kind of investigate receipts. So a lot of your modern cloud software can attach copies of receipts to your accounts payable. That's very nice if you ever get audited or just you need to refer to the receipt. It would be right with your accounts payable. Let's go ahead and edit this accounts payable. Again, I don't think that there was anywhere to attach anything. No, there's not. So I think this is a fairly good program, but it's not going to have some of those newer options. So I don't see where we can attach a copy of the receipt. Okay, now let's see if we can record a monthly recurring expense for telephone service. Okay, so um, within here, so within our workflow here, I'm not seeing anything that specifically says anything about recurring payments. Okay, I don't see anything over here specifically about recurring payments. So I think our best shot is going to be to enter a new payable and see if we can make it a recurring payment. So again, we'll just use today's date. This time we're going to see if we can create the kind of the vendor on the fly, I like to say. So we don't have it set up yet, but can we just type in the expense? So we're just going to call this New York City Telephone Company. Okay, and see if what does it do with that. Okay, well, we'll just keep going here. So we want to make this one $150. So this $150 is the total accounts payable balance. It's not just for that company, apparently. So that's a little odd. I'm not sure what use that number is to us. So we're going to say that this is for $150. We're going to give it a reference number. Down here, we're going to say this is a telephone expense. And then here, we're going to have to put it to a telephone expense account. We don't have one set up. So let's go ahead and create a telephone expense. So it looks like up here we can actually, so these are standard. If we just click on 6430, will that add it? There we go. And now we can just add that as an account. Okay, well, that's pretty neat. That's not something I noticed before. So these are not in our chart of accounts right now, but all we have to do is click on them and then hit add account, and they become part of our chart of accounts. Okay. Kind of cool. So now I should be able to select. Yeah, see, you're almost going to have to memorize your chart of accounts or have it open all the time. So I know that our telephone and internet is 6430, but there's no other way to choose it. You open that and you got to choose it by number. You can't choose it by name. So that's pretty inconvenient. Okay, so we're all in balance here. I do not see any way to make this a recurring bill, so we're going to have to enter it every month. So we are actually going to enter it as automatically being paid from the checking account. Okay, so I don't see any way to make it automatic through our accounts payable. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel here. The one other place it could be is to make it through our immediate payment. So we're not going to pay an accounts payable because we canceled that. We didn't set up the account payable. We want to do it as an immediate payment. So we can use today's transaction date is fine. And I don't think it would have saved our telephone company. So let's do New York City Telephone Company. Paid from the checking account. We're going to pay it with we're going to make this an automatic withdrawal every month. So let's just call it other for $150. Okay. So down here, let's put it to our, oh, now good. Now this one you can actually see the names. That's much nicer than in the accounts payable feature. Okay, and we're going to debit 150, so that should put us in balance. And now, interesting. Okay, so before I hit record, I'm going to come over here and say save as template. This might be where we can do our recurring transaction. Well, not sure. We'll go ahead and set up the template. So we'll just call this monthly telephone. And we'll see where it leads us from here. It didn't do anything. Okay, so let's go ahead and record this, and then we'll see if we can figure out if that template did anything. Transaction was successfully recorded. Okay, so let's cancel. Now the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure so now our New York City telephone company did show up as a vendor. We don't owe them anything because we immediately paid the $150. Now let's see if next time when we go in here, will it have the template for that payment. Okay, now we can say use template, and we can say monthly telephone, and it'll automatically set it up, but then we have to hit record. So that is not a recurring transaction. You know what, I tell you what, I'm going to give them a half a point. So I score everything kind of 1 point or nothing. So it's not automatic. You're going to have to remember to go in and do it, but it's really easy to do. I selected the template, it put the current date on it, and it set up everything. All I have to do now is hit record. Okay, so I've already recorded it, so I'm not going to do it. But every month you have to remember to do it, but you can go in, use the template, and it's very, very easy to do. So I'm going to give them half a point for that. Okay, let's see where we're at then. Okay, so now we're going to start talking about inventory. Before we do that, let me score in the Express accounts in my scorecard here. So we can create vendors, we can record expenses without paying them, we can record the due dates of the expenses when we record the bill. We can't attach copies of the receipt. Can we create a recurring expense? This is where I'm going to give them a half a point because you can set up that template. But you do have to remember to go in every month and basically, hit a button or two to record the new bill, but all of the work is already done as far as the template being created. Okay. Now let's look at inventory, and I don't think that you can do much with the standalone version of Express Accounts. Now they have a integration that I think would be very powerful, but I think without it you can't do much. This Inventoria is the integration that NCH software has to help you manage your inventory. Before we do anything, let's go to our options, and I know that there was an inventory tab. Let's see what all it tells us about inventory here. So show warning for items that aren't in stock. Okay, inventory synchronization settings. So this is if we're going to integrate with Inventoria, which we are not. This case study is evaluating Express Accounts as a standalone product with no integrations. So if you have a lot of inventory, if you like Express Accounts when you're done studying this case study, perhaps you'll be interested in integrating it, but we're not going to do that. Okay, so let's see what we can do without it. Perhaps our sales tab will deal more with inventory. Good. So down here, inventory is often considered an item. Let's make sure we don't have purchases items. So payments, accounts payable. Good. Okay. So like a lot of software, it deals with all of the items under the invoices. So let's view our items. We have no items set up. Very nice. So let's hit add to add a new item. Looks like there is a separate tab for inventory. Okay, so we're going to add this item. We're going to call it plumbing widgets. Okay, so we're going to, case study asks us to set up an item for plumbing widgets. We're going to purchase them for $10 and we're going to sell them for $25. So the item is plumbing widgets. We are going to now unit price. What does this mean? Does it mean okay, so the second one here says unit price, unit purchase price. So I'm going to assume unit price must be unit sales price. So we're going to sell them for $25 and we're going to purchase them for $10. Okay, very good. When we sell them, we are going to record them into an account. We're going to have to create a new account. Let's see if they already have something here for general sales. That looks good. Let's add a general sales account. Now when we sell them, we're also going to have a purchases an account. So now this is interesting. They don't have a cost of goods sold account. They just have a purchases expense. So let's go ahead and let's set up the general sales first. Okay, close that. And now, so our income account is going to be general sales. Our expense account right now is utility expense, but let's see if we can create a cost of goods sold account, right? So if it handles inventory correctly, every time you make a sale, it's going to post whatever the cost of that inventory was to the cost of goods sold account. Alternatively, if the software doesn't do that, then what we can do is every time we record a purchase, we could put that purchase amount into inventory, which is an asset account, or we could put that purchase amount to purchases, which is a cost of good sold account. But then at the end of the year, we're going to have to calculate what is the value of our ending inventory, what is the cost of our inventory, ending inventory, and then we're going to have to do a journal entry. So because of the way this is set up, I think that's probably what's going to happen here, but we'll figure that out by the end of this chapter. So expense account, I'm going to go ahead and let's create we'll just call it a purchases account. Yeah, and here you can see they don't have a cost of goods sold category. So that tells me right off the bat this is not going to make the cost of goods sold calculations for you, which is really what you need for inventory. So let's go ahead and let's add the account they got set up here for purchases. So they call it general products purchased. Add that account. Very good. So general products purchased. Okay, the last thing let's do, let's click over here because this is inventory. Let's manage our inventory stock levels. So current quantity is 0. Our ideal quantity, let's see, how many are we going to be purchasing? We're purchasing about 150. Let's say our ideal quantity is 100, and we want to be warned anytime we get less than 50. Okay, so it sounds like it will help us manage the quantity a little bit, but what you really need in an accounting software is that calculation of the cost of your inventory that's been sold, and this does not appear like it's going to do that. Okay, it's requiring a description, so we're just going to say plumbing widgets again. Okay, there we go. So yes, the $25 when it said price, it was selling price. So it looks like this is all set up very nice. I do like it. I like it as far as setting up the item, and it's going to track the quantity for us, but it doesn't look like it's going to track the cost. But we'll verify that in a second. Okay, so our next task is to record a purchase order for 150 plumbing widgets from the widgets guy. Okay, so we're going to get to do our first purchase order. We've got our item set up. Again, that item was under sales, which is not unusual, but we've got to go to purchases here because now we're going to create a new purchase order. Our supplier is the widgets guy, and I think we've determined that it'll actually just set it up for you automatically. Now, one thing that could be a problem is it just sets it up automatically without any sort of confirmation. So if you mistype if you have a typo in the supplier's name and you go ahead and finalize the document, then it's going to create a new supplier with that typo in it. So that is one downside of them not popping up and confirming that you want to create a new supplier. Okay, so we're going to leave the address and everything empty. We're going to say we want to purchase 150 units of our plumbing widget for $10. are not going to pay tax on it. Okay, so for 150, so for $1,500 total, this is our purchase order. Okay, so let's say, so it looks like we can actually print it, email it if we want to. Let's just record it. Okay, and then record only. Okay, so we've recorded our purchase order. Very good. On 1/15, actually it doesn't matter which date, we now receive 100 of the widgets ordered for $10 per unit. The invoice is dated and due. Okay, so now we've received an invoice for the 100 for 100 of the 150 units. So let's go to purchase orders. There is our purchase order for 150 units. Let's open that. Okay, so I'm looking at I'm trying to find where we record that we received this and convert it to an invoice. So it doesn't look like it's from within there. Let's see, maybe it's when we enter a new accounts payable and we pick that supplier. Yep, perfect. This supplier has one or more open purchase orders. Do you want to link those with this accounts payable? Yes, we do. Okay, select it here to link it. Okay, link purchase orders. Okay, but instead of 150, can we change this to just 100? Okay, we don't want that extra line in there. Okay, so now we're just receiving 100. Let's hit finish. Okay, and there we go. We need to put this to the purchases. Okay, surprised they didn't automatically do that since we had that item set up to do that. Okay, and so here's $1,000 bill because we received 100 of the inventory. Okay, so very good. So now a couple things. Let's look at our purchase orders and see if it still shows that 500 of them are unreceived. No, it doesn't. So that's a little bit of a problem, right? It didn't. I wish this would show this. I wish it would show that there were still 500 widgets we ordered that have not been received. So kind of our workaround is going to be we're just going to have to add a new purchase order for 500 more units. Okay, that's really not really an acceptable workaround, but it is what we have to do. So it doesn't really show the whole paper trail that you need to understand what happened when you look at it later. Okay, well, there we go. Okay, the other thing I want to look at is I want to look at our inventory item and see if it shows that we now have 100 widgets. So let's go back to sales and invoice items. And here we go. We now have, oh, well, this is no good. All right, so now it's showing that we have 150. So what that means is that the inventory items are coming from the purchase order, not from actually receiving the item, and that's kind of a big problem, right? Because you might put a purchase order in, but until you receive them, you don't have them. So that is a problem. Okay. So yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think to myself here. Where might we find more detail about the inventory? Let's go to reports. An inventory report. Doesn't really tell us much more than what we already saw, right? That we have 150 plumbing widgets, which we know is not correct. Okay. Let's look at our income statement. Make sure our income statement's correct. Hopefully, our income statement's not being based on purchase orders. So income statement for the month. That's fine. So general products purchased of $1,000. Good. So at least our income statement is showing the amount we actually received of the product, not the amount on purchase order. But our inventory listing is incorrect. Okay, so we're going to have to do a little bit of scoring here. So let's look at, I'll pull my rubric over here so you can see my scoring for NCH Express. So we were able to create an inventory item, and it does track it, so that's really good. I do like that it tracks the quantity, even though it's not going to do the cost of goods sold correctly. So we can record a purchase order, and we can convert that purchase order to a bill. We can create a bill for purchasing inventory. So viewing inventory available. I am not going to give it credit for that because the amount it shows you as being available is incorrect. So to me, that's almost worse than not showing an amount at all. View inventory on purchase order. I'm not going to give it credit there. That's exactly what it's doing, but it's not telling you that that's what's on purchase order, not actually available. So again, that's dangerous. I'd rather not show anything than show something incorrect. Okay, view total cost of inventory on hand. View units of inventory on hand. So again, it might seem harsh, but it's trying to do these things, but it's doing them incorrectly. It's basing them on purchase orders instead of inventory on hand. So let's think about how we could work around this. If I were to really try to use this program for a business, I tell you what I would probably do. I would probably not use purchase orders and record only the bills from the inventory. Let's look at that. That might be the way we work around this. Okay, so let's go in here and let's do some shuffling around here. So let's go back to our purchases screen. Now what if we go in here and we delete our purchase order? Let's delete. I don't know that we'll be able to delete this because it's tied to an accounts payable. Oh, it did let us delete them. Okay, so we're going to delete these purchase orders. Okay, now let's go in and let's make sure our accounts payable, our bill, we don't want to create it, we want to view the accounts payable. Here we go. Okay, let's go in and let's look at this widgets guy. Yeah, okay, so here's the problem. When you record a bill, you can't record the inventory. You can't record the inventory quantity or anything. It's simply the dollar amounts. And so that's why the inventory quantity number, it's based purely on purchase orders, not on the bills. Okay. So I tell you what I would do if I were to use the software and have to figure out a way to work around. I would only use the purchase order function when I actually receive the inventory. I wouldn't use it as actual purchase orders in advance because it's going to show the quantity on hand. Okay, so let's do this. Let's be a little bit more forgiving in our scoring here and score it with our workaround. So as far as purchase orders, so can you record a purchase order? I think basically because of the way it tracks quantities of inventories, we actually can't use the purchase orders as purchase orders. We have to use them more as receiving reports. Once we receive an item, we can record the purchase order. Otherwise, we're going to misstate our quantity on hand. So I'm going to say you can't do the purchase orders. Okay. You can create a bill. If you Once you create that purchase order upon receiving it, then you'll be able to view the inventory available, view the inventory not on purchase order, and we can review the cost of the inventory and the unit. Okay, good. So we can view the cost of the inventory, the quantity of the inventory. However, you want to make sure you use your purchase orders when you receive the item rather than when you actually purchase it. So we're not giving it any credit for purchase orders because they don't work the way a purchase order should. Okay, excellent. Sorry, that was a little bit lengthy, but I think that gives you a real good in-depth understanding of what's happening here. Okay. Good. So let's go ahead. We need to re-enter our purchase orders. That will just take a second. So we have, let's just do one for 50, one for all 150 units. Okay. The widgets guy, 150 units of plumbing widgets. Okay. Very good. Now if we come over here to sales and view our items, we can see that we have 150 units there. Now what about if we hit report? Does that tell us the total cost? Yeah, so here it gives us the total cost of our plumbing widgets at $37.50. Okay, good. So let's move on now. Record the following expenses for a project for your customer family bowling, and let's name that project bathroom renovation. So we don't have project accounting in Express Accounts, and so we will be able to bill the customer, but there is no way to designate it as a specific project. Okay, so let's record the following expense, however. So you're going to pay Hank Independent for contract work. So here, going back over to purchases, and we want to pay Hank Independent, so he's going to be a supplier. And let's see if we can set him up in such a way so he's going to be an independent contractor that we're going to need to issue a 1099 to at the end of the year. So let's see if there's any way that we can designate him as somebody that needs to receive, sorry, I'm not a very good speller today, independent. Okay. Phone, fax, tax exempt, additional info. No, I don't see anywhere that we can specify that he is a 1099 contractor, which means that that's just a feature that a lot of software has. They'll automatically track all of your 1099 payments, so at the end of the year they can help you actually fill out your 1099. So we can't do that with Express Accounts. Okay, let's go ahead though and record a payment to Hank Independent for contract work. So we're going to do an immediate payment to Hank Independent. Paid from the checking account with a check. We're going to pay him $1,200. We're paying him $30 an hour for 40 hours. We will eventually charge $80 an hour for those same 40 hours. Okay, so the account here, we're going to have to create a new account for something like contract labor. Let's see if they have an expense set up for us. Yep, they do. Subcontractors, $62.60. Okay, so choose $62.60 here. Subcontractors, $1,200. Let's record that. Okay, now unfortunately here, notice there's nowhere that we can specify which client this is for, because we're going to turn around and we're going to bill this same time to the client, although at a higher rate, obviously, because we need to make money. But there's nowhere here that we can specify which client this eventually needs to be billed to. Okay, and then we're going to also do a permit fee. Again, we're not going to do it. Really what we're testing with the permit fee is whether you can pay an expense again and assign it to a particular customer or project. So we're not able to do that. So let me bring over my scorecard. Okay, so how are we doing here? We cannot do project accounting in Express Accounts. We can't track 1099 payments. Let's see, creating a service item. We can actually no. So the service items won't do us any good. So a service item would be something like contract labor. Now we can create that service item for the invoice, but we can't use it on the bill payment, so it won't do us any good for purchases. But I'll do a half a point, because we will be able to create that service item for contract labor and use it when we bill the client for it. Okay, and in fact, let's go ahead and let's take a look at that. So what I'm talking about here is we can go into sales, and just like we created an inventory item, we can create an item for a service. We will call it contract labor. Okay, and we can describe it just as contract labor. And then we can put the sales price as $80 an hour, the purchase price as $30 an hour. We're going to put the income to general sales and our expense to subcontractor. So all of that looks good, but when we go to use it, it's not going to do us any good on the purchases. So when we do either an immediate purchase or an accounts payable, we're not going to be able to select a item, right? Because it goes directly to an account. There's no way here to make payments to items versus accounts. And so we can create the item, but the only time we can use the item is going through a purchase order. Okay, and while that might be worth it in order to track inventory items, that's not worth it in order to track a service item. And so going back to my scorecard, this is going to be why for items, for creating the service item, I'm just giving them a half a point. The default cost of the service item, we can put it in, but it does us no good because, again, we can't use the service items on the bills or direct payments. We can set the default price of the service item for the sales price, and we will be able to use that on invoices, I believe. Okay, pay the independent contractor using the service item. No, we had to do it directly to an account versus the item. Designate the payment as billable to a customer. We weren't able to assign it to a customer. To designate it as billable to a project, we can't do it to a customer or project. Okay, now continuing on with the case study. We want to view expenses incurred but not yet billed. Well, we're not able to track expenses as billable or unbillable, and so we have no way of tracking the fact that we've paid $1,200 to Hank Independent and we haven't invoiced the client for that yet, so we can't do that. Okay, now we just kind of want to overall look at our vendors and stuff. So it's asking, can we view a list of vendors? Obviously we can do that right here with, they call them suppliers. There's our list of suppliers. Can we view our unpaid bills? We certainly can. We can go look at our accounts payable here. There's all of our unpaid bills. Very good. Can we view those unpaid bills summarized by vendor? We can't here. It does give us the supplier, but there's no way to combine them and show like a subtotal amount. Oh, here we go. Yes, we can. We can go and look at just particular suppliers. There we go. Okay, so we can look at unpaid bills by suppliers. Can we view a transaction list by supplier? Usually if they have this, it's going to be in the supplier screen. Perhaps a statement. So what if we choose, say, the widgets guy, and we produce a statement. Is there a print preview? We can't preview it. Okay, let's go to our reports and see if it gives us anything. So again, we're looking for transactions by vendor. So over here we do have an awful lot of reports. Looking for vendors again, vendors. Yeah, I am not seeing anything where we can look at transactions by vendor. Okay, so back to the rubric. Back to the case study here. So record an electronic payment bill of the utility bill on that we have recorded already. So let's go back to our purchases screen. Our accounts payable, we have this utility bill. Let's go back to viewing all bills. We have the utility bill of $150. Let's highlight it here and then let's hit payment. Okay, so we need to do some mapping of some accounts. Okay, and so we need our deposit account, that's our checking account, accounts receivable, accounts payable, income, expense. So we need to do all of this linking before it's going to allow us to pay in accounts payable. Well, that's a little bit odd. Freight collected, this isn't something that's in our that's not something that's in our case study, so we'll just go ahead and put these to some general expense categories here. So I think 6110 is our products purchased. Our sales tax collected, that is something that we're going to work with. And so it looks like it's giving us a choice of 2,000 accounts. So let's see if, I think we're going to have to set up some additional accounts. So let's set up our sales tax accounts. Okay, so it's not letting us record the receipt of payment just yet. So we need to go over here. We need to go back to our chart of accounts. And let's see if there's another way to get to it. If we're on our home screen, can we get to our chart of accounts? Well, we can go up here to configure. Okay, and then under accounting is our chart of accounts. Let's edit our chart of accounts. That brings the screen we're used to here. Interesting. Well, okay, no, let's click new here. Okay, so we need to set up a liability to hold our sales tax that we collect from customers. So we're going to hit new and see if they already have one for us. Here we go, perfect. Sales tax collected, 2410. Hit add account. Okay, done. Okay, now if we go back, this is very cumbersome, isn't it? I mean, I think it's a fairly decent software, but it is a little bit hard to get all this set up, right? Once this is set up, it'll be set up and you won't have to do it anymore. But it's a little cumbersome. Let's again look at our accounts payable. Let's try to pay this utility bill, and it's going to come up with that error here. And so we're going to have to put, okay, now it's automatically mapped our sales tax collected to there. And so what about sales tax paid? Okay, we can also make it to that same account, which is perfect. Good, that's exactly how we should handle sales tax collected. A lot of programs will set that up for you. Here we had to set it up a little bit manually, but that's just fine. So freight collected, let's just put that to general sales. Freight paid, let's put that to purchases. Hit OK. And there we go. So you'll see you do kind of need a little bit of accounting knowledge probably to get this set up properly. So now we're able to finally enter the payment of our electrical bill. It's going to be paid from our checking account. The case study asks us, can we do this with a electronic transfer, sure, we'll just say other. So you can't do the transfer within the program, but you can do it outside of the program and then record it. Okay, unapplied amount remaining. We're going to apply that there. Okay, now we can record it. Payment was successfully recorded. Okay, and now we cancel out of it. And good, now it shows us that our New York City electric bill has been paid. Very good. Okay, let's see if we can get a little bit fancier than that. Okay, see how flexible the program is. So the next thing we want to do is we want to pay the widgets guy, but you can see that we owe the widgets guy $1,000. Can we pay him a partial payment, what often is called a short payment? So let's see if we can short pay the widgets guy. So let's go payment. Hopefully this time it should take us right to it. Well, that's annoying. Why didn't it remember everything? So our income account is general sales and our sales tax collected is $24.10. Now why didn't it remember that? I don't know, but okay, there we go. Good. So here, instead of $1,000, we're only going to pay him $800. Okay. Now this looks promising, so it's saying we're applying $800 towards the full $1,000. Let's click on that. Okay, and let's record this transaction. Payment was successfully recorded. Okay, and cancel. Nice. Look at that. Partially paid. We short paid him. We partial paid widgets guy. We still owe him $200. Very good. A lot of free software won't do a short payment like that. So that's excellent. Okay. Excellent. So now let's say we return a plumbing widget to the widgets guy for an $11 refund. Okay, and we want to, I think this is going to be difficult. So we're going to, first off, let's go ahead and collect the additional $200. Let's say that they came in and they paid the additional $200 just to get that taken care of. So a payment. Again, it's not remembering this. Okay, we're going to pay the $200. There we go, record. Okay, there we go. So now we want to return a plumbing widget. How are we going to do this? So I do believe there's a way to do credit memos. So let's go back to our options here. I'm pretty sure it had something about credit memos. These are credit notes that we issue to our customers. Okay, is there anywhere? Okay, so let's look over here. So when we're dealing with customers, trying to see where they have the credit memo for your customer. Okay, so I don't even see how we do the credit memo, but we'll investigate that when we get to the invoicing chapter, which is next chapter. So for as far as purchases, I don't see a way to do a credit memo. Okay, so looking at my rubric here for scoring purposes. Let's go through here. So to record the e-payment of a bill, piece of cake. Print a check from a program. I do not believe we can do that, but actually let's go back here and let's see if we can. So what if we go in here and we say it comes from the checking account? I know we've done this before. Yeah, here we go, record and print check. So let's just make up an expense here to the telephone company for, I don't know, $20, and that it's a check. Okay, so this should be to our telephone expense or something. Okay, there we go for $20. Now let's record and print check. Okay, and here it pops up as an opportunity to print the check. Let's hit print. Actually, let's do a print to a PDF so it doesn't actually print at my printer. Sure. Okay. I'm not seeing where it popped up on my screen, but anyway, so you can print checks. You'll have to find compatible check software. Actually, let's just go ahead and cancel. Okay, there we go. So we can print checks. And record check numbers. We cannot create a credit from the vendor, and we can't decrease the inventory. We can short pay an invoice, so that was nice. So subjective ease of use. We've been in this chapter 1 for quite some time, haven't we? So I'm going to say that this is not particularly easy to use. So let's say I would give it probably about a 0.5. So pretty consistent with something like Wave. Okay. Well, great. Hopefully that was useful to you. It was a bit of a marathon video, but again, I think in general I would say it's a pretty good program once you get it set up. It doesn't deal with inventory very well, which you're not going to find free software to deal with inventory. If you have inventory, you need to invest in something like QuickBooks Online, Xero, or Zoho Books. Those are all good paid options. So it doesn't deal with inventory very well. Aside from that, it actually seems to work pretty well once you get it set up. So if you're not an accountant, you will absolutely need to hire an accountant to help you get it set up. You're not going to get it set up properly on your own. And with accounting software, it's really important you get it set up properly or it's never going to work very well. So hopefully this was very helpful. Again, my name was Tim Yoder with Fit Small Business, and this was Chapter 2 of our case study.